Ooh, I wish I was face to face with you right now. Because if I was, I would lean over and look at you eye to eye. In fact, if we were sitting with each other, just one-on-one with a cup of coffee between us, I would lean over and look at you eye to eye and tell you something from this vantage point of life that I am so glad was emphasized to me over and over and over again when I was 20, and then at 25, and then at 30, and then at 35, and at 40. The people that loved me the most and cared about the nourishment of my soul emphasized to me something that I want to express to you as clearly as I possibly can in these few moments that we have together. The older and older I get, I realize that without an ongoing, effervescent, fervent nourishment coming up on the inside of you, you will not be able to have the sustained hope and peace and joy and contentment and grace and fulfillment that you are going to require when the atmosphere of drought swirls all around you. And if there is one thing that this last season that all of us have been through has taught us, with all these disappointments and all this hardship and all this isolation and all this division and all this unrest and all of this sheer unprecedented drought of recent times, it has shown us this undeniable truth that we need something on the inside of us that does not require external circumstances in order to keep it steady and in order to keep it strong. This is one of the messages that was so critical and so important that Jesus wanted to express to his disciples that 24 hours before his crucifixion, this is what he wanted to tell them, that an internal source of fulfillment was going to be the only thing that was going to be able to sustain them through what he knew was coming next. Their hopes were about to be dashed. Their dreams were about to be squashed. Their hearts were about to be broken. In 24 hours or so, Jesus is about to be arrested and crucified. All their hopes were pinned on him. Jesus knew that this disappointment was coming. And so in one of his final messages, he expresses to them the need to have something that is independent and does not rely on external fulfillment in order to continue to sustain and nourish. Now, I want you to consider how you would feel if a loved one, somebody that you care about deeply, has some final words that they want to share with you, and they know that their time is coming to an end. They know that they only have a few words that they can share with you, only a few more hours that they are going to have in your presence. If you had that type of opportunity, wouldn't you lean in and listen more closely? Wouldn't your ears be more piqued because you don't want to miss anything that that individual that you love so dearly and desperately is going to say to you? Not in their final words. You don't want to miss anything. The disciples are leaning in because Jesus is carefully and very decidedly and intentionally sharing with his 12 most beloved friends exactly what he wants them to know before he is crucified and then, of course, is raised from the dead and then is ascended away from them. He has just finished what would be the Last Supper. He has just washed their feet. He has just predicted his betrayal. He has just told them, let not your hearts be troubled. He has just reminded them that in my Father's house there are many mansions. He has said to them that I'm going to ask my Father to send another helper to you, the Holy Spirit. He has said to them, my peace I am going to leave with you. And on the heels of this meaningful meal, he leads the disciples away from the dinner table and out of the city, through the winding streets of Jerusalem, up toward the Kidron Valley, on the way to the Mount of Olives. The Garden of Gethsemane is within the Mount of Olives. Everything that is about to transpire next in terms of the crucifixion is going to begin in the Garden of Gethsemane. They are on their way there toward the Mount of Olives, down these dirt paths where they would have passed through the familiar community that the disciples knew so well, the flat top roofs that they would have passed while they were on their way. And as Jesus led the disciples, they would have passed by something that would have been extraordinarily familiar to them. something that they would have seen day in and day out on every regular day when they were passing through this city. They would have passed well-blazed trails, tidy rows of carefully, masterfully planned and manicured vineyards. They would have passed grapes. And I want you to consider the possibility that Jesus paused by one of the many vineyards that would have dotted along the path that they would have been traveling towards the Mount of Olives. Consider that he stopped beside one of these vineyards that represented joy and festivity and really did highlight the abundance of any community. He stops by one of these working vineyards and he says these words to them in John chapter 15, verse 4. 7 words that if you can absorb it and hear it and align your life to it and take it seriously in your teenage years and then in your 20s and in your 30s and your 40s, your 50s and beyond, it can keep you well nourished even when there's a drought outside your window. Jesus said, "Abide in me and I in you." Simple, yet profound in its implication. He said, I'm going to tell you something that is going to be one of the most critical messages I leave with you, my beloved disciples. If you don't do nothing else, abide in me, and I promise to abide in you. When the atmosphere around you dries up, when your health fails, when your friends betray, when the endeavor you've worked so hard on falters, when you're not appreciated or even noticed, when the road gets tough to traverse, when your loved one dies, when your ministry flounders, when your heart is broken, Jesus says there is only one thing that will give you the continued sustenance and nourishment that you need to have a well of joy and hope that overrides during times like these. Abide in me and let me abide richly in you.